Good evening from all the corners of Soweto, South Africa, Africa, and the world at large. Welcome to Sakum's restaurant on Vilakazi Street, where we are holding conversations of fathers and sons organized by the Selomake Kangube Foundation. These conversations are basically held during the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children. Yeah, we are having this conversation because there is a serious need to deal with the scourge of gender-based violence. I'm not alone. I am with my sons. I have Nell Tsahai, my second eldest son. I have Lindo Makubu, my fifth. The fourth of my children. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been having fun. This is our fifth edition of these conversations, and we've been having fun so far, and we've been getting lessons. Our guest this evening is not with us in studio, so we are connecting in the air, but you will be seeing him. I won't be seeing him. I won't be feeling him, but we will be conversing. And our conversation today is we're going to be dealing with the tools of dealing with toxic masculinity. We are going to have these conversations so that we get enlightened on how we can better men's behavior, how we can change from bad to worse. Follow us on Twitter. Our hashtag is @MKN_sons changing attitudes. MKN_sons do good to be good. Bongile, our guest, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. How are you? How are you, my brother, and your audience? And
Thank you very much, man.
yeah.
No, thank you, man. Thank you, Bongile, and thank you, man, for accepting our invitation. You know, with these discussions and conversations that we are trying to hold in order to connect fathers and sons in dealing and conversing about these issues pertaining to masculinity. And if you don't mind, I mean, can you introduce yourself a little bit more, you know, to the viewers out there?
No, I'm Bongile Mkumbene. I am an entrepreneur. I am a life coach, a business coach. I've got a company called Mahapu Holdings, which has a number of entities as subsidiaries, working with SMMEs. And I recently started, recently as part of my mission, I started an initiative called 1,000 Circles. In 1,000 Circles, our goal is to have people talk in circles for nation building. You know,
Okay.
one of the subsidiaries or the other organizations within 1,000 Circles is Men's Work 1,000 Circles, which gave birth to Men's Initiation Circle, which I think is relevant to, or is more in line with the conversation that we are about to have today, where we initiate men, we work with men and sons, and connecting men to their true selves and in how they show up in the world. I'm also part of MKP, which is Mankind South Africa. So I'm a member in MKP. So I'm in communities doing a lot of community development work as part of my purpose outside of my entrepreneurial ventures.
No, thank you, man. Thank you for the little intro. I would like to give my sons an opportunity to, you know, greet you and, introduce themselves to you. And then after that, and then, we'll get, working head on with the conversation. No.
Hi, bra Bongile Mkumbe.
Mkumbe, yeah.
Nice to meet you. Though you're so far from us. Yeah. Well, my name is Neo, and yeah, but thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Hi there.
Okay, all right, okay. I think this is our first visual conversation, and I think it feels a bit strange to be talking to somebody not in the room, and they're used to speaking with me in the room, but they're going to be having an opportunity to find another dad somehow who's going to be telling them, giving them the tools on how to deal with toxic masculinity. My brother, how can you unpack, can you just unpack this whole, toxic masculinity thing and also now lead us into acquiring the tools that we need to use in dealing with it?
I think we can't really talk about toxic masculinity before we engage with a number of factors. There are obviously a number of factors that attribute or that are contributing to find men in toxicity. But the one big one that I see telling is there are a lot of men in the world who are wounded and don't know their wounds, and because they don't know their wounds, they start showing up in the world in ways that are toxic, ways that are destructive, ways that that abuses the world, the world being women and children, and to an extent also abusing themselves, you know. So there's little knowledge about ourselves as men that we find ourselves in shadows or tripping in our shadows as we work on these topics in our programs, you know. And it's even worse when men are wounded to not be to see themselves and as not be good enough in times like this after COVID, where there's a lot of unemployment amongst men, and that the situation in itself result in men feeling carry a lot of feelings of shame, you know, and shame obviously leads to not being good enough if you're talking to wounds. And so there are a number of wounds that men experience, and because they've gone through those, or they've experienced that hurt in their infancy, or when we were young, especially because the wounding time of our lives happens when you are between 1 and about until maybe 7 or 10. But we start seeing the reflections of those wounds when we are older, but by understanding your wound, you show up better in the world because there is that understanding.
Okay, all right. Do you mind unpacking, for instance, the makeup of these wounds?
Okay, I'll give you an example. As like for most fathers, especially from my experience, where my father was not present because he had to go work in the mines as a young man. As a young boy, I'd never experienced my father's warmth, you know, and every time when we had to be close, he will not give me time. He'll always be busy going to work and all that. And that in itself, when I will demand time from him, he will not be present, and that in itself resulted in me feeling not loved, you know, not good enough, you know. Another example would be if you have a son that every time you're with him, I mean, we have this exercise where a father will be playing with a son, but he's also holding a phone at the same time. And that in itself also is part of an experience of wounding, that you are not fully present with your son, and the son will feel like your phone is better than him, so he has to choose between you. I mean, he's competing with your phone for relationship. That in itself results in him feeling not good enough because the phone is probably better. Now, what will happen is that every experience of his life that may make him feel not good enough, right, can attribute behaviors that he will not have planned, you know. Let's say he's in a friendship with someone that tells him, no, man, your car is not nice. I'm making an example like that. That kind of a person can get triggered so bad that he can get in a bad fight with whoever that may utter those words.
Right.
In a relationship, a wife will tell him no, can be saying something innocent like, I don't like the way you do things. He can interpret it as not good enough and result in him being triggered. Or a wife can be a friend with a man, and that can make him not feel not so good enough. And he gets triggered because he does not understand his wound and he can't work with his wound.
If I may come in there, but maybe what I should do is actually, before coming in, I should ask if, that my boys here, have some questions, with, so far for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Rabongile,
Yes, sir.
what I've noticed, with our society, at large, talking from experience, like I've seen so many guys, even probably myself as well, where we see that we seek approval, from our peers and stuff. Because you say with like the way schooling are corner with hey, you cannot u-abhayidele umthetho kamfazi wakho or i-girlfriend yakho noma kubonisa indlela zayo. Is it right? So stina sisenzani, we end up like now, I'm not gonna take this woman's advice because of my peers have told me, which like, you know what, So what I'm saying is the seeking approval, inferiority complex, and when it comes to also ego, because of sometimes mawudila nezinto noma utshela iqiniso awufuni ukuli-accepta ngoba yini utshela yini i-girlfriend yakho uthi hayi uzomshashaya, you understand? So we end up like now kuba ne-conflict within the relationship itself, and then the only way you can deal with it is when now you have to ukuthi like umfake isandla nomfazi uthi yazi ngimfake endleleni manje, you understand? So into esikhule vele in our community, Black people's community, ukuthi hayi kumele umshaye umfazi wabona or i-girlfriend yakho. So I just want to hear from you, Wena, what are you saying about that? Am I probably pointing the right to what?
Yeah, you get societal indoctrination, which makes us develop cultures. I grew up knowing what you are talking about now. To say that if this happens, if a woman does not listen, this is supposed to happen. But I think the big thing is to understand what triggers you, what gets you to a point where you actually do that is your wound. Because you'll find that your woman will be reminding you of your little boy that was made to feel not so good enough by maybe second guessing you, or always having points in your discussion that make you feel smaller than, or and then because you get reminded like that all the time, then you find yourself being triggered most of the time because she always challenges you to a point where you feel not so good enough, and to a point one day you get, and then I'm shying in power. But if you know that you have that wound, every time that happens, you work with your little boy or your wound. Then you don't hit your wife. Instead, you work with your wound and understand that maybe she has more information than you in some cases. Because, we're in a generation where women are even more exposed these days. They read, they go to universities, they're independent, they are exposed, That in itself, if you've always carried that wound of not being so good enough, and then you get a woman that challenges you like that, she puts you in a corner of reminding you about your wound. And you don't know about your wound, that happens. Your wound is basically a part of you hide, you suppress, and you deny.
Okay.
So these parts that you
no, go ahead,
yeah.
go ahead. Just finish off
Yes.
that thought.
Yeah, these parts of you that you hide, you suppress, and you deny, they show up in ways that make you toxic because you don't know that they are there. But when you know they are there, there's awareness in order for you to not be toxic. Because that is why what we do in our programs, we skill and we give men tools of how they can work with their wounds in order for them to not be toxic in relationships.
If I may come in just in the Bongile.
Yes.
I just saw so much what you want to button, but I want to give Lindo, my other
Yes.
son, a chance.
Yeah.
You know, to if ever, he's got some thoughts that he would want to share with you.
Okay.
Babongile, I think recently I saw a quote on social media that said something to the extent of, men not being necessarily loved and appreciated for who they are, as women are. But as a man, you have to have acquired something or be in a certain position or social standing, if I can put it that way. You must be a provider of some sort to gain that approval. And I think right now, where I'm at, I'm still, as a young man, trying to find my feet and experiencing life. And I think I'm at that point where, I'm sort of feeling that pressure, if I could put it that way. But it makes me somehow understand how, people like men who are unemployed, would feel in a position like that. So what would be your take on that?
And in fact, before you come in, and my question actually segues into what Lindo is asking Bongile.
Yes, sir.
And that is, why do men find themselves, like trapped on, or sort of like on a one track? And the one track that imprisons men is that they just have to be providers, or they see themselves only as providing and also maybe as leading. And whereas we are growing in an era where you find that, there's some kind of, men are not the only ones that go to work now. Women also, find themselves having, women also go to work. And now, why is it difficult for us to actually adjust to this reality?
I think it's basically socialization. It's the programming. I think I spoke to you a while back about recoding, because that's the way that we were socialized, we were programmed. That we are providers, we are leaders.
Yeah.
But going back to I think it's Lindo, your other son. A question. It's also, he spoke to societal standards. That the coach was saying you must have something in order for you to be recognized as a man. Society says that, and whoever that came up with that idea also, it comes from someone. But you'll see that individuals, right? We need to view each other, ourselves as individuals in order for us to do work as men. There's a group wound of men that we get defined by certain materials, but our wounds are different. So someone else will not necessarily feel not so good enough by not having money.
One thing Yeah.
someone else that grew up that was not wounded that way, that was wounded by those kind of definitions of money and all that, will get impacted by when we speak about money. In fact, you start seeing them shine more when they have money.
Okay. Basically, I kind of liked when you spoke about recoding.
Yes, yeah.
Can you basically unpack that? I mean, guys, when you've got questions, I mean, butt in, and we're running out of time. I think we left with a few minutes, and I think if we can maybe, if you can as well, maybe just give us a short and precise, answers, to the questions, so that we can maybe get, sort of like sort of gain more ground, So yeah, how this recoding? How do we
Yeah.
do it?
Yeah, I think firstly you need to understand the program you're running on, like computers. You have one computer, it runs on a particular program, but if you want it to run on a new program, you need to know that this one is not working. If you're wounded,
give us yeah, okay.
an example will be if you are wounded to be unworthy, right, and not good enough, unloved, right. You need to record yourself differently. The program that makes you feel like you are not good enough, you change it to be good enough. The program that makes you feel unloved, to change it to be loved, and unworthy to be worthy. And once that program has changed, then the way that your outlook to the life to life will also change, because you will not be impacted by people that make you feel not so good enough. And as an example will be this. Okay, I don't want to be racial, but I wanted to use that example. Amongst okay, from my experience, amongst white people, as black people, or as a black person, from my experience, I'm seen to not be so good enough, right? I had to rechange. I needed to recode myself to know that I'm good enough, and for a long time.
Just on that one. Now you were thinking I'm not good enough, and I'm not. There are a lot of young men out there who feel that, and now you have to program it with good enough.
Yes.
What are the tools? To actually start embarking on? What are kind of thoughts that one has got to have, or come up with in his own head, in order to undo that I'm not good enough?
You need to define where it comes from. You regress back to your childhood, to the people or the situations that made you not feel so good, and the voices, the eyes that made you feel not so good enough. Once you see the root of where that comes from, you replace the voices, the eyes, with the new eyes that make you feel good enough, worthy, or all that. Because that voice that is in you will need to be changed. That is where the program is. If your father, your granny, your uncle, your sister made you feel like that, you need to replace it with a new voice, the new eyes, the new affirmation that says you are good. Yes.
No, lovely. I don't know, guys, if you've got questions.
I would like to say as well, what I've thank you, Prabongile. What I can add to what he said, when it comes to the tools, the one I can just mention now, since we don't have time. I think men should continue doing good, and never repent from doing good, because of Mawins in Tekrende for Inzazayako. Just continue doing it despite your friends or your cousins or whatever. If you feel it is good, just do it. Doesn't matter, because these two people, nisazophusha i-life, you understand, nizoba nencosi nenzeni, nikhulisa umuzi wenu. Is not for other people, so forget about abangani ukuthi bathini. So that's one of the tools I can give.
No, brilliant. Lino?
I think I like actually what you said, because I'm actually, you know, on a process of like affirming myself. You know, I found this, you know, these videos on YouTube where you affirm yourself daily. You know, you reassure yourself. You do things that make you happy, and you know, it's basically putting yourself first. So I think that as a tool is very important, because I can feel the difference that it makes in me. So thank you for that.
No, brilliant, brilliant. Well, Bongile, it is very clear that you are actually imparting us with some tools and also with some lessons that we are going to have to take home. You know, in about 30 minutes, you know, not 30 minutes. Aren't I just ambitious? That's ambitious that I still do have time. you know, like in 30, 45 seconds, you know, if you can leave us with words, pearls of wisdom, you know, regarding the, you know, the tools, something that we can take home. What is it?
Look, men's work, right? It's about being authentic, being open, being honest. These tools will not work when you are not honest with yourselves. Most men are told not to, we are trained not to experience all the emotions like sadness, fear, and shame. We only experience a lot of anger and happiness. So if we are authentic in that space, it becomes easier for these tools to work. You know.
No, thank you, man.
Yes.
No, man, Bongile, man, I would like to thank you for giving us your time. And, you know, we are making plans, you know, that maybe over the weekend, that maybe we would have a session, you know, we'll organize a few men, you know, we're still trying to work out the logistics, and we'll definitely, you know, keep in touch with you, you know. But I really want to thank you for giving us your time, for sharing us, you know, your wisdom with regards to the subject that we had tonight. And you know, yeah, I mean, this has been a worthy conversation, I think, for me, and I think I hope even for my boys. And guys, you know, in few words, you know, of wrapping up.
Yeah, well, I would like to add on the tools as well. You know, like we suffer from insecurities as guys. You know, so about your woman and stuff like that. Let me tell you something, guys. You know, the thing which like abafazi baningi la emhlabeni. So stop killing women because of manje yakudampa or wenzani. So the only way in mfethu there's hope. Uzobathola mfethu abafazi baningi man. Stop killing women. That's all I can say.
Wow, that's a very interesting take. That's a very interesting. Lindo?
Now, you know, Babongile said something that's actually making me think now about that men, you know, we operate in two emotions, which is happiness and anger. That we don't really get in touch with the sadness or the depression side.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, it's something to think about.
No, well, this Bongileman, again, let me express, you know, my gratitude, you know, for giving us your time. And as we close the show, and we say to all the viewers out there, thank you also for, you know, sitting through this program with us and listening to words of wisdom and pearls of wisdom from Bongile Kumbeni. Look, I don't know whether to call it a struggle, but the fight is on. The fight is on to end gender-based violence. So please change your attitude. Do good. To be good. This is a time for us to sow seeds of change. This is a time to sow seeds of healing. This is the time to sow seeds of ending gender-based violence so that we break the cycle and we create a better life for generations to come. Our generation should be the one that creates a future for the nest. Let us be that passage. Let us carry through the DNA of being good men. From me, Selo Makekanyube, sayonara, goodbye.